G'day trendsetters, I'm John with Gravel Cyclist and I'm coming to you today with another no bullshit components review. The clue should be the bike's in the work stand with the front wheel removed. This time around it is none other than the FSA WE semi-wireless electronic drivetrain. FSA's take on the electronic drivetrain is completely different to the offerings by other manufacturers in that it's semi-wireless. That means the shifters are wireless, there's no physical connection from the shifters to the derailleurs, but the derailleurs, front and rear, are joined together to the battery which resides inside the seat post. There are two cables that connect directly to each derailleur. The shifters are both powered by a CR2032 coin cell battery. Stating the obvious, this is the disc brake version of the group set, but there's also a rim brake version available as well. I need to state immediately that this group set was never ever designed for the rigours of gravel cycling, but that's not to say it has not been put to the test by yours truly and by gentlemen such as Jamie Driscoll, who raced this group set at the 2018 Dirty Kansas 200. My lackluster performance, I've been riding this group set for approximately 5 months. The front derailleur is the brains of the operation, so unfortunately fans of one by, this system is not for you. Now it's time to talk about how the shifting works and how it has performed. I'll also cover the cranks, brakes, cassette and everything else that goes into making this complete group set for FSA WE. The system is powered on and off with this button right here. And I can also perform adjustments by placing the system into adjustment mode with this button here. So you see the flashing green. Now it's out of adjustment mode. With the system in adjustment mode, you can also connect to it for the FSA WE app. Once you're connected, you can adjust shifting. So for example, I could map the buttons around differently on the left shifter. The same with the right shifter. Here are some stats here of the shifting I've done. You can see there 546 shifts, 13,495 absolute shifts. You can also set multi-shifting and the shift delay between multi-shifting. And here are some other power settings. So after 1 hour, I have the system set to power off. The LED power blink that basically says, hello, I'm alive. Every 60 seconds, a little flash, a little LED. And here, the main level battery inside the seat post, 33% left. And apparently I have 196 front shifts left and 5,211 rear shifts before I have to charge again. Each shifter consists of a paddle that floats on a rocker switch, and as I demonstrated a moment ago, you can also customize the function of these buttons. Out of the box, this button sends the derailleur down the cassette and this one up the cassette. Likewise, the left shifter handles the changes on the front derailleur. Out of the box, the top button shifts up to the big ring and the bottom button shifts down to the small ring. Single gear changes are executed fast. FSA could possibly be the fastest wireless shift system going. The other thing, if you shift fast, the front derailleur seems to lag behind with the trim function. It catches up, but it's just not speedy. These shifters are comfortable, but not as comfortable as the benchmark for shifters, in my opinion, Shimano GRX Di2. I seldom use gloves and I've not experienced any pain at any time using the shifters from all positions over some seriously long rides. In my opinion, they're very good for people with smaller hands and you can adjust the reach, but this is as close as the reach will get, unfortunately. So for some folks with very small hands, you'll have a hard time getting this lever close enough, but for most folks, it has you pretty well covered. And as you can see, it's quite easy to affect one finger or two finger braking. And because these shift buttons are so well spaced apart, there's no confusion of hitting the wrong button in my experience, even if you're wearing gloves. System battery life I would expect is about 3,000 miles or 5,000 kilometers, so it exceeds systems such as ETAP and is on par or better than systems such as Shimano Di2. The coin cell batteries inside these shifters I would expect to last about a year or two. Looking head on at the shifters, there are many different positions you can relax, and you might notice they kink out slightly, so I often ride with my fingers just like that, so it's a nice little perch for two of my fingers right there. We can just relax like that, of course on the drops, so many different ways, but all of them I feel are very comfortable. Every time you perform a shift, you'll notice the front derailleur triggers an LED. That indicates the battery life of the corresponding shifter. So the left side LED is for the right shifter, and then blue indicates very good battery life. In fact, I'll overlay the battery life chart so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. And of course, the same applies for the front derailleur shifter. You'll also notice this LED in the left side, right now it's flashing every 5 seconds. By default, it does it every 3 seconds. That is an indicator of the system battery, the main battery inside the seat post. Now I change the settings usually to every 60 seconds, but you can see it's like a yellowish color LED. And again, that corresponds with color codes, like with the shifters I showed earlier, to the battery charge status. So this battery is around about 33%, so it's getting low. So at some point soon I'll have to charge it. So you can see the power LED blink there is set to 5 seconds. I can also disable it completely, but I like to leave it at 60 seconds. That way it's not too annoying. So then we can get out of here and there you go, disconnect. The front derailleur also indicates error code. So for example, if I shift the rear derailleur, but don't actually pedal the bike, it'll cause a stall. So I've done 2 shifts, 3 shifts, there you go, see, error condition, not too good. So let's reverse that and then just pedal the bike. I showed front derailleur setup in the build video, which has remained spot on since setup. Like Shimano Di2, the system trims the front derailleur as you shift across the cassette. As you can see, the front derailleur shifts quite nicely. Now, I don't like to shift front derailleurs under heavy load, so with regular usage, like I do, it shifts just fine. And there you can see the front derailleur performs the trim function once it's performed the shift to the big ring. One thing about the front derailleur, depending on your bike, tire clearance can be tight. Now this is a 650B by 42mm tire. A 47 will fit, no worries at all. But remember, this system was never really designed for gravel. I have run 700 by 38 and I'll overlay photographs of that so you can see the gap right there. But on this wheel, it's about 10mm. With 700C by 38 on this particular bike, the J. Gillam Italia, it's about 2 or 3mm. So the chainstay length is going to have some bearing on this front derailleur and its success on your bike. The FSA Adventure crankset is pure magic with its 46-30 chain rings, and even with an 11-32 cassette like I currently have on this bike, you can climb virtually anything with this combination. And 46, in my opinion, is the perfect big chainring size for a 2-bike configuration. This crankset has stood up well to the abuse I've dished out and looks fantastic. FSA makes a ton of different bottom brackets, but the BB86 bottom bracket on this bike, the J. Gillam Italia, has been trouble-free. The FSA WE derailleur does not feature a clutch, but before anybody squawks about that, clutches did not exist in the gravel application until a couple of years ago. I began riding on gravel way back in 2006, 2007, and we made do just fine riding along on road group sets that worked without any problems. Shifting is flawless once you have the derailleur adjusted appropriately. It is designed to shift up to a 32 tooth cog. Right now I'm running a Shimano Ultegra 11-32 cassette, and as you can see, it shifts just fine. The FSA Cassette is a nice bit of gear. This is the 11-32 version. It's on par in terms of quality, and I think it's close to the weight of the Shimano Dura-Ace model. It's also on par in price. There is one problem though. This cog here, which is the 14 tooth cog, it never seems to want to go onto the cassette body. There's a bit of machining that needs to be finished off to make it to fit. And this is on an NV hub. I've had this problem on every single hub barring one whose brand escapes me right now. That mostly explains why I've been running Ultegra cassettes with this drivetrain. In fact, you could also save some cash. If you do like this drivetrain, you could use the Ultegra cassette, which is markedly cheaper than this one. The negative with this derailleur is the gear adjustment. Electronic drivetrains never go out of adjustment, but say if you swap wheels and the shifting is off a smidge, you must place this derailleur into the middle position. So right there. If you don't and attempt to adjust the system, I've had the system think the end of the cassette falls beyond the 32 tooth cog, but thankfully the limit screw prevented any mishaps. It's an easy enough problem to solve, and I'm hoping that firmware may fix it in the future. I much prefer how Shimano and SRAM handle their derailleur adjustments, which can happen anywhere on the cassette. And also, the FSA adjustment operation is best performed by the side of the road or on a work stand, because you have to enter adjustment mode by pushing that button there, and that's not exactly convenient when riding your bike. On to brakes. The calipers themselves are attractive and have none of the vague feeling of waiting for the pad to contact the rotor. These brakes feel just like a really well dialed in rim brake, but with tons of power and modulation. The power doesn't come up front in the lever stroke, it's gradual. Like most hydraulic brakes, they are pretty impervious to bad weather, they just work. FSA does not make a center-lock rotor at the time of this video, but that gave me the chance to run several wheels and rotors with these calipers. Every one of them worked very well, zero complaints. Handlebars and stem are not really part of this review, but this K-Force light stem and K-Force compact drop handlebar are really sweet. Sure, its clamping area only extends about an inch, a little bit more, past the edge of the stem, but it's been fine for my needs. So you can see I have a computer mount here. I often attach my GoPro camera right here, and there's also been plenty of room right about here for a snap bag, etc., to attach to the handlebar and the stem. You'll notice these handlebars are compact drop with no flare whatsoever. Thankfully, there's no rules in gravel cycling, so you are free to ride whatever handlebars you like. I prefer no flare. I like to keep my frontal area as small as possible, but I feel if you're riding with your handlebars way out here, that really does make your frontal profile much bigger and therefore can impede your forward progress. However, if you're the type of rider who likes to add a bag to the front of their handlebar, extra real estate and so on, that makes total sense. So this sort of handlebar may not be for you. In summary, I'm stoked to see FSA's entry into the market, which provides another drivetrain system. Now granted, electronic shifting is not going to be for everybody, but I'm a firm advocate of the technology, and I've been riding electronic group sets ever since Mavic released their entry way back in 1994, Mavic Zap. To me, the FSA WE group set feels a little bit unpolished and somewhat unfinished. It has so much potential that would make it a very viable player against the other electronic drivetrains currently available on the market. I really like what they've done with their semi-wireless design. The fact they've linked the two derailleurs together with the battery, that really prolongs the battery life for a wireless system. Of course, it's semi-wireless, so you still, if you're a mechanic, have to run a wire physically. Now, I don't know too much about how patents work in the cycling industry, but I imagine there's been some creative attempts by other manufacturers potentially to hinder any new technology that might be happening with electronic shifting, and I wonder if FSA had to work around some of those challenges just to get this group set produced in its current form. I sincerely hope there was no loss in the functionality due to something crazy like that. With that all said, I sincerely hope the FSA is working on the next generation of FSA WE. So that's the very interesting FSA WE semi-wireless electronic drivetrain ridden and reviewed. I realise nowadays there are several drivetrains available on the market for your gravel bike, so I hope that my review in some way into helping you make an informed purchase decision. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Gravel Cyclist YouTube channel, and don't forget to click the bell button to be notified of future videos as they appear on the channel. There are product reviews, ride experience videos, all sorts of other madness. And right now is when I really could use my sunglasses. This glare is killing me. I'll see you in the next video.